Welcome to the fastest stop in town. Today on Masechtas Yevamot Daf Chaf Beis, we're going to begin a Chaf Beis about Aleph, about 7 lines from the top. So we were learning some of the Shniyos Harayos, and now we're going to continue with more of them. Tani Debei Rabbi Chia. So he says as follows: Shlishi, with regard to a third generation, there is an Isser of Shniyos Harayos Shebivno, regarding a son, namely your son's daughter. And then Shivibitoi, your daughter's son's daughter. V'shiba ben ishto, v'shiba bas ishto shniya. Regarding your wife's son's daughter, or your wife's son's daughter's daughter. So all of these are under the category of a shniya. Ravi, when it comes to even going a fourth generation, is shiba chamiv v'shiba chamoisoi, regarding one's mother-in-law and one's mother-in-law's mother-in-law, shniya. Amule Ravino Rav Ashi, Maishna Lamal de Kachoshev Lala Ishto. How come when we're going up, we mention the Ishto, we mention the wife? Umaishna Lamata, going down, the Loy Kachoshev Lala Ishto, we don't mention the wife. So Lamala, the reason why Lamala, we mention the wife, the Isser Mekayach Ishto Kaasi, Chashevla, because the Isser is coming Mekayach Ishto. That's how you're related to the in-laws, is through your wife. And that's the reason why it's mentioned that way. However, going downward, where there is not this Kayach of the Ishto, so we don't mention it. It says Rashi, Mashna Lamata, the Kari Labas ben Beno Dor Shlishi, why do we say it's 3 generations and not the Ishto, which would be 4? So Rashi says, El Mikoyach Didei Dibivno Me'onusa Askinon. We're talking about a son that came about through wedlock. But these cases of your wife's son and your wife's daughter, the Isur Mikoyach Ishto, it's the Isur, and the connection is through your wife, and nonetheless it doesn't mention. So I did a ton of Shlesha Daris Lamata Didei, V'chashva, Tananami Gimel Daris Lamata Didei V'chashva. So since it mentions 3 over there, it doesn't mention it, so it's over here by 4 it's also going to mention, even though it actually should be 4. You're right. Amli Rav Asher Rav Kahana, Shnios, the Rabbi Chia. When it comes to the Shnios, according to the Shita of Rabbi Chia, as we mentioned, the 3rd generations, Yishan Hesek or Elehen Hesek. Does it stop, or do we go further up or down for more generations? Tashma Yamar Rav Dal Noshim Yishan Hesek. 4 women, there is this stop, and therefore we don't go up or down more. Vasulo. Dilma Kikar Rav Lahahi Masnisa. No, that's not a raya. Maybe he's only talking about that which is already mentioned in our sugya. However, maybe it's not coming to discuss the dinim of Debei Rabbi Chia. So Tashma Shlishi Ravi in Tvelo. The fact that he mentions 3 and 4 must be he's Dafka 3 and 4, not more. So no, Dilma Mishlish Elech Ravi Elech. In other words, it's possible this is only where it begins. Before that is a real erva. Armali Rabu Rab Nachman Chazi Mar Haimarabana the Asim Marava. The Marava, they ask a question, a different question. Gozer Shnios Begerim or Lo Gozer Shnios Begerim? Do we make a gezerah when it comes to converts? Now, converts in general, once they convert, it's considered like a situation where it's kikatan hanayilad. It's somewhat like kikatan shanayildam. It's like a newborn person, and therefore meikar adin, they should not have any din kroivim. So the question is there a din shniyas arayis when it comes to gerim as well? So we can understand that we do have this din of when it comes to gerim, even though they don't have krovim. But the question is, do we go so far as to even say that by shnius, which is din derabanan? So amalei hashno ma'ir b'guva ilav shlo yomer boy mekadusha chamor lekadusha kala lo goz b'rabanan shnius meboy. So the truth is, if it wasn't for the fact that the reason why we do say that they can't marry their own direct relatives is because otherwise it's something which is usher before they were Jewish, and all of a sudden they become Jewish, and all of a sudden we're going to be more lenient. The whole idea is they're makabel more mitzvos, so they're more strict. So the whole reason why arayos in general are usher is just because of that. So shnios, there shouldn't be a shaila. That certainly we should not be geyser. So Amar Rav Nachman Gerim Hoyav Asal Yaldan. So when it comes to Gerim, we're not geyser. So once we mention Gerim, Nemelu Milsa, I'll tell you the following din. Achin Minaim, if you have brothers that came from the mother's side, which means you have two brothers, and they were both not Jewish, and they both converted, it's maternal brothers, Lo Yi'idu, they're not able to testify together. However, if they actually would testify, Itaka would end up being a good edus. Now, the reason why we don't want them to testify is l'chatchila, because it kind of, they had the same mother. But because of the din of kakatan shenoila dami, technically they actually could testify, and it's not an issue of relatives. Achim and Av, when it comes to brothers who again converted, but they're brothers only from their father's side, me'idin l'chatchila, in that situation will even allow them to testify l'chatchila. Why? D'rachman afri l'zera mitzri. D'chsev zer masusim zir masam. Hilchach kurvas ab inu kurba. The fact that they were related through their half brothers through their father, that's like really nothing. It's much more significant being related half brothers to the mother. But the fact that when, as the pasuk says again, it's like the zera of susim is when it comes to a mitzri. So therefore, they could even be made l'chatchila. No, that's not true. I hold that even mina'im, even though you maybe think that you should maybe be geyser when it comes to that, we allow that edus to take place as well between two brothers who converted. So ma'ishnami arayos. So why, when we said by arayos, it says Rashi ger shahayin nasa yachoso min ha'im yoitzi. If a ger married a sister from his mother's side, they have to actually separate from each other. The question is why? If l'chayra, they're not related technically because they both converted, so then why are we geyser by arayos that they can't get married? If they do, they have to leave. But when it comes to edus, it's good edus. For instance, erva l'chol masura, edus l'beis masura. The gersh niskar kekatan shenol dami, says Rashi. So when it comes to edus, it's something which is specific to the Beis Din. However, when it comes to Ereva, it's everyone. Hakol noisim noshim, everyone's getting married. Hilkach ishars likiyuma, if we allow them to remain married, this brother-sister relationship on the mother's side, then what would end up happening? Asinam lemishri Ereva be Yisrael. Then maybe we'll also allow Erevas to marry, who are Jews. The kol yalmo yadi, the time to ger mishum the katan shenayel dami. Not everyone knows the reason is, it's because it's katan shenayel dami. You look at, they're Jews. However, when it comes to Beis Din, the inami machsharsas edas achim gerim u asal achshuri achin Yisrael, the Beis Din yadi the ger shniskar katan shenayel dami. They're not going to make that mistake because the Beis Din knows the reason why they're allowing these two brothers who converted to be able to do edus, to be able to testify. It's because they understand this concept of Gershon Shizgayer is Kikotin Shenoil Dami. And therefore they're not going to end up allowing brothers who are Jewish from birth to end up giving edus. They're not going to make that mistake. And therefore, that's why we're more lenient when it comes to edus as opposed to erva where we aser. Question 1. Mehem hatamim degozer al gerim shul nasi l'harayis kurei v'yisayim. So what is the reason? So we said 2 reasons why we don't allow gerim to marry an ereva, even though technically they're not married, they're not really relatives anymore. That the sanctification is less. Or the asal chalufe, a person is going to make a mistake and get confused. Okay, fine. Question TA 5. Ha'im gerim achim ksherim le'edus l'chadchila. So, achim in av, everyone holds ksherim l'chadchila. Achim in aim, instead, is a machlokas, because as we see over here, a meimar is of the opinion that even when it comes min aim, it's l'chadchila. Okay, so again, achim in av, me'idin l'chadchila divri akol, and a meimar says afil achim in aim, namim me'idin l'chadchila. Okay. Right, let's see the next Mishnah. So the Mishnah says, Mishesh lo ach, as long as there's another brother. So Reuven has a brother Shimon, and Shimon dies childless. So the din is, Mikol makom zoykek es eishes achav liibum. His wife will always go to Yibum, to Reuven. And we're going to see in the Gemara, even if Reuven was a mamzer, it doesn't make any difference. There's still this bond, this connection. Fine. Furthermore, we're going to see that this brother, even though he's a mamzer, he's still considered to be a brother regarding Yerushin. We'll see other things as well. But if his brother is a product from a shivcha, from a non-Jewish woman, so it's not his brother. So because this brother is not Jewish. So it's the same din. As long as Shimon has a son, there's no din yibum anymore. V'chayev al makato bal kilaso, and the child, if he hits, is going to be chayev for hitting as well as cursing. Uveno l'chol davar, and he's a son regarding all matters. Chutz misheish lo bein min hashivcha min omedes kachavim. So as again, when it comes to shivcha omedes kachavim, the product of a woman who's not Jewish, that child's not Jewish. So as long as he has a brother, there's yibum. What is that coming to include? So as we said, even if the brother's a mamzer, it's still din yibum. So pshita, why not? Achavu, still his brother. So maybe you want to make a connection to the children of Yaakov. Why don't we talk and make this connection? Because that's what we saw, the whole din of achva, that it has to be, that, as we saw before in the beginning of this Masechta, it can't be a situation of, if you have two brothers who are not alive at the same time, and we went up from this idea. So the concept of Yibum is very much linked to this pasuk and to the Bnei Yaakov. Kivandu in Yibum nifter, since when it comes to Yibum, they'll be pater, says Rashi, as Eishes Aviv, his father's wife, mi Yibum, pater kagon, im haylo ben mamzer. If the child is a mamzer, so there's no Yibum. So it must be that a brother who is a mamzer does Yibum as well. Right? That's what it's come to tell you. So since we know that when in Yibum nifter, so as long as you have a child, we continue to chav beis with beis, even if that child is a mamzer, the din still is, there's not going to be Yibum, because there is a kid, so miskuk nami zokik. So too, the fact, even though the brother's a mamzer, still there will be this link. He's your brother regarding all matters. So my when it comes to Yerusha, to inheriting, as well as becoming Tameh. So what does that mean? So Rashi says, Im Kohen hu, if let's say your brother is a Kohen, so in that situation, V'lo ach mamzer, and he has a brother who's a mamzer, metamolo. So a Kohen is allowed to become Tameh, even in a situation where one of his Zayin Krobim, his brother, is a mamzer, he can still become Tameh for him. So this is question TB6, at least part of it. The question was, Kohen haba al erva v'hoylid ben mamzer ha'im metamin loy kroivav v'im chayav al kalaso umakoso shel aviv. So far we see that kroivav tameim lo. We'll see the rest shortly. Fine. So for the Gemara Pshita, Achav, who again is your brother, why would you think he should become Tameh for him? So we said, who are you allowed to become Tameh for? Sheiro. That's who the Kohen's allowed to become Tameh for. Yomer Mar Sheiro is Ishto, it's his wife. It also says Liyatama Bal Ba'ama Behechalo, that you cannot be, a husband cannot become Tameh to the one who became chal, who became no longer kaddish to him. So yesh baal shematam v'yesh baal she'ena matama. It's sometimes the husband has the ability to be matama to his wife and sometimes not. Haketzad matama hu ishto kshera ve'ena matama ishto psula. He only has the ability to be matama to his wife who is a kshera, but not to his wife if his wife is a psula. Says Rashi, lafuki kaima hilkach lav ishtohi. Fine. So therefore, you maybe think hachanami matamahu ach kosher ve'in matamu ach posel kamash malon. You maybe think that just like by the wife. Let's actually look at the words of question 2 over here. Question 2 asks this: Mi sheishlo ach mikol makom. Fine, which is a mamzer ve'achav hu l'chol davar. So what is that halacha? That he's a mamzer achav l'chol davar. Said l'tama l'yarshav ve'mai enu pshita. Why is it not pshita? This is how he writes it. Dahavamina dumi de ishto. It's like your wife. De'ena matamla psula. You don't become tummy when it comes to your wife who's a apostle. So if she's like heichalo, she's like chal, like not sanctified. So then in that situation, the Kohen doesn't become tummy for her. So maybe you think the same thing. The Kohen should become tummy for the brother in the same situation. Kamash Malon, it's only by the wife that we make that chiluk, but by the brother, even if he's a mom's, you still can be matama for him. Over there, Mafuka Kaima. She's not really his wife since she's psula, so you don't be tummy. But here, he's your brother. In other words, as Rashi says, Lafuki Kaima Hilkach, since she's really standing to leave, so therefore she's not really your wife. However, this is still your brother. Your brother's your brother. So my time So the pasuk is davka, the situation where it's the wife linked to their children. And therefore it has to be only in the situation where the mother's Jewish. But if the mother's not Jewish, and over this kachavim, so then that's not considered halachically your brother regarding yibum and the like. Misheshul ben mikol makom pater, so mikol makom l'soy mai. So Omer Rabbi Yehuda l'soy mamzer, my time and Yomer Krav bein ein lo ayin olav. So it's instead of saying ein lo, it's like a plain word, it's ayin olav. As we see this in the beginning of the Masechtas Kedushin as well. That this is the idea that you should investigate. And therefore, even if it's a mamzer, that would also constitute as a son in which you will know your wife. If that person would die, then the wife would not be do yibam anymore. The chayiv al makasai. And you also chayiv on hitting. So my karikan v'nasi be'amcha l'sa'or bo'esimasi amcha. L'chayra, it's only if you are doing the mitzvahs, says Rashi. V'hai aviv lavoisa ma'asim amchahu. He's not doing the mitzvahs. Shahari ba al erva v'almin mamzer. This father is no tzaddik, right? The fact that he had this child who was a mamzer, so that means that he did something wrong himself. He was ba al erva. So then the son who hits him should not be chayiv. So what does that mean? It means that the father became Masa Amcha because even though at the time he was wrong for being Boil Ereva, but the reality is that he did Tshuva. And since he did Tshuva, that's it. So we're not going to hold him the rest of his life. Okay, he has a child. It's a Mubasul Yuchaliskain. But nonetheless, the reality is that you can do Tshuva. There is an element of Tshuva. And since there's this element of tshuva, so therefore at least it helps regarding that your child be chayiv on kalaso imakasai. So look at question vav. V'hu einu chayiv al kalalos umakas aviv el b'oisa aviv tshuva. Okay. That was TB6. All right. Weiter. So the Gemara says, what do you mean? How's that tshuva? Right? V'tanan Shimon ben Menashe Omer Ezu mu'aves ul yuchalis. That's something bent can be fixed. Zeha ben zehabal erev abahim no mamzer. So hashnemiya oisa ma'isa amchahu. Again, even though it's true, he had a child, so you can't there's nothing you can do. This child will always be in the world, but you can still do tshuva for it. Tanurban. Habal chaiso, if a person has relations with his sister, vihi bas eshes aviv. And not only that, it's also his father's wife's daughter. So not only is this girl your sister, which is an Araba, but it's also your father's wife's daughter. So chayiv mishum achoso mishum bas eshes aviv. So according to him, you're actually chayiv both. Says Rashi, Vihi bas eshes aviv. She's your father's wife's daughter. Da'alidei nisuin, through marriage, nodal aviv v'lo b'oinsin. It was through marriage, and not through wedlock. So the Gemara continues and says, Rav Yosef ben Yehuda Omer eno chayav elo mishum achoso b'vad. You're only going to be chayav for achoso, however, lo mipnei bas eshes aviv. You're not going to be chayav for bas eshes aviv. Okay, so the question the Gemara asks is, my tamai the Rabbanon. Why do the Rabbanon say that you're going to be chayav for both? So Amri Michti Ksiv Erevas Achaischa, that this is the ereva of your sister, Bas Avicha O Bas Imecha. So then it says Erevas Bas Eshes Avicha Moledes Avicha Achaischa Hi. She is your sister. So Lamali, why does it have to add those words Achaischa Hi? Shema Mino L'chayv Misham Achosa Misham Bas Eshes Aviv. It's telling you that you're actually chayv for both. The fact that it mentions Achaischa Hi, it's coming to tell you that you can still be chayv for both. Rav Yosef ben Yehuda Omer. So according to Rav Yosef ben Yehuda, who says no, you're only going to be chayav for achoso, he'll say like this: Omer kra achoscha hi. Why does it mention achoscha? Mishum achoso hu atamachayav v'yatamachayav mishum basa eshes aviv. All it's coming to tell you is out of the two, which one are you chayav? Achoso. You're not going to be chayav for the other. According to the Rabbanan, you're chayav both. Rabbanan hi achoscha hi might avidalei. So what does he do with it? So miboilahu chayav achoso bas aviv ubas imoy, to tell you that you can be chayav for your sister who is both your father's daughter and your mother's daughter, namely your full sister. So what do you mean? If you're going to be chayav for half a sister, so aren't you going to be chayav for your full sister? Like, it's obvious. Gemara says, even though you can maybe make a kavachomer that certainly should be chayav in that situation, we have to have a separate azhara to be chayav a full sister. Rav Yosef ben Yehuda. So how does he know a full sister? So he, Lamali, why does it mention he? That's how he learned it out. For Rabbanan Afa Gav Dechsev Achaischa, even though it says Achaischa, it still needs to say that. Shelo Timer Ba'alma Masir Medidin. So you shouldn't think that in general we do hold that you can make an ashara based off of kavachayim. Sometimes the pasuk adds things, even though it could be derived from a kavachomer. That's why kasav rachmana he. That's why the pasuk says he, to tell you no, it's not that, but rather you can never be masir min adin. Yosef Yehuda imkein lechtem rachmana lachoischa he beidach kra. It could be derived from the other pasuk. Since it's in a pasuk of Bas Eshes Aviv, so it's saying she's your sister, to say you're only chayiv for achoso, and that's it. Because why is it in that pasuk? It's specifically in that pasuk to tell you that you're only chayiv for achoso for your sister. Rabbi Yosef Yehuda, hi bas eshes avicha may avadale. What does he do with that? So meboyle mishesh lo ishos avicha ba, someone who has a marriage through your father. Pral achoso mishilcha bo'vedes kachavim shein ishos avicha ba, excluding when it comes to a relationship in which she is your sister through this relationship from a non-Jewish woman, that is not considered to be Eshes Avicha. It's not considered halachically like your father's wife. Why? Says Rashi, because it's not kedushin. Kedushin is not typhus. As we see in Masechtas Kedushin, shivcha am hadoim l'chamor. So we say that it's not a marriage, etc. Okay, so the Gemara says, Ve'ema prad la'chayso mi'anusa. Maybe it's coming to exclude a sister through wedlock. Says Rashi, Shelo haya isha slavichaba. Maybe that's what's coming to exclude. Not a sister through, that your sister's from an Ovedas Chachavim. Maybe it's a sister that is a product through wedlock. Mariah says, no. Hahi lo matzas amrit. You can't say that it's coming to exclude her. Kedarava Rami. He has a contradiction. Ksiv, in one pasuk it says, Erves bas bincha obas bidcha lo segala. Habas bidna dida, his wife's son's daughter. Ubas bita dida shari. L'char, that's mutter. Aksev Erves isha uvita lo segalas bas bina, his wife's. Dias bas bina haketzad kan ba'insin. Kan benisuin. The fact they have these two psukim, one is through marriage, one is through wedlock. So we don't say that bas bina is aser, since it's not your wife, but out of wedlock, it's still your child. So achoso is actually coming to include anusa, and therefore you would actually you would not be able to be able to connect to that situation, because she's certainly your sister. Mashain Kain, even though it's through wedlock. Mashain Kain, if it's achoso through again over mishivcha from Umas Chachavim, that's not that's not considered to be comparable. Okay, let's see this question. Maybe question TA6. Misha kiddush achas mishtei achayos. Adkan.